particularly here in Westchester. It's a vacant storefront registry. And some of the municipalities that have done it is Ossining, Briarcliff Manor, New Rochelle, Newcastle, Larchmont, Beacon, Newburgh. There's, many, many municipalities have undertaken it. And what it essentially is, it's a tool to for the village to have a better understanding of what the vacant properties are, why they're vacant, what size they are, how long they've been vacant, and to try and give an incentive for the owners. Some of them are legacy owners who have owned the building for years. Some of them are recent investors, but to basically give them an incentive not to keep the buildings vacant. So, the goal is to do that not through any sort of tax or punishment, but through a registry that would require, after a period of time, we were suggesting 30 days of vacancy, for the owner of the building to register the building with the village, to provide quite a bit of information about it, for the purpose of the building department, having some safety issues, is it insured? Are there contacts for an emergency? Contacts for property management. And the way that the way it would really function is it's like a time sort of sensitive process. So like you could register now, and there are a couple of proposals of different ways we're thinking of doing it, but you register the building, and then if the building remains vacant for an extended period of time, there starts to be registry fees. And we had like a couple of different thoughts of how the registry fees would work. They're in the package with either a minimum or a maximum price per square foot. After a couple of months, it would increase and then increase again. There would be an initial registry fee. We had talked about a waiver system that if somebody is actively listing the building, has it on a national database, has it on LoopNet or the MLS, or has a sign in the window, has it listed with a broker, if they're making a good faith effort to create, like a waiver system, so that they're not, punished for having a vacancy if they're making a good faith effort to fill the space. So, it would require passage of a local law, and there's a model New York State law that many of the villages and towns that have adopted this have more or less taken and made it their own, through their own modifications after discussion about how long, how do you define a vacancy, what sort of initial registration fee, what sort of information do you want, how will the fees progress over time. That's all completely flexible and is geared towards whatever the village thinks is the best way to get the job done. If you look around the village, and I included a bunch of slides, there are vacancies. The vacancies are largely neglected properties. Some of them have been vacant for an extended period of time. I've reached out to many of the owners who don't return phone calls. I know, and Dave has done something similar. I'm sure he gets a return phone call though. Sometimes, but it's one tool of many to try and motivate the owners to be more actively involved in their properties and their buildings.
And for some of those long-term vacant, somewhat derelict buildings, do they have other tenants in them? Like, are there residential tenants? And
some of them have not residential that I know, but some have, it's like storage and warehouse uses that isn't a use allowed in that zone.
So no positive use for those buildings, is.
Well, there are some buildings that have residents upstairs and.
But not residents on the first floor.
So a certain percentage of them are either empty or a non-conforming use.
The storefronts or the buildings overall?
The buildings.
No, they all have residents.
They all have residents.
Yeah.
Oh, that was my question.
Well, like 153 Main is completely vacant. There are some that are vacant, but like above the Celtic Corner, I assume there's still people living there.
Correct.
So.
Right, because I'm not sure that I understand the distinction between a fee for keeping your place vacant and a fine for having your place vacant. And I'm not sure how you assess a good faith effort.
So
I think if they're actively pursuing like a rental or signed up with somebody showing it and stuff like that, or like I said, signs in the window. And you could even, I guess, call them and see if they are really showing it, and if it is, then they're actively trying to get somebody, but there,
Right.
but there's stuff,
Right,
we could
you have
do,
to-
we could work that into the waiver, like you said, change the local law to be more productive, sorry.
Because you can list something without any intention of
Right,
renting.
exactly.
Right, that's what,
There would always
Yeah.
be somebody who would try and figure out how to get around it, and I mean, that's just part of.
So I think the
existence.
way, so both of the versions 1 and 2 of the proposed kind of regimes here don't, like, I was supposed to get you an updated like refinement that I didn't get you, but like currently this is kind of a slow and steady increase of whatever the word is that we're using. I think we have to put a little more teeth around like what is like good faith. But also, I think what we need to do is increase the scale should not be what is this exponential, it should be logarithmic, like
Ooh,
like, I think like it shouldn't be consistent stepwise increases every 6 months. I mean, this is even after a year, so you can sit on it for another year. I think in like there's like a little bit of push and pull where the village is supporting it as much as possible. And I want to dig in, like, as we refine this, if the board is okay with us continuing to pursue it, making sure that the all of the support is there and all of the none of this starts kind of hitting us if all the things are happening correctly. But if things are like I suggested that we don't start out with a listing cost to get into the vacant registry. I think we want to make it as easy as possible for folks to comply. And then if they are choosing not to take the easy road of complying, then these things start to fall into place and it gets more and more painful to not comply. So when you
Right.
start.
And we had also talked about a fee for failure to comply. So it's kind of an incentive to participate. But one of the answer to your question partly is in New York State is a village can't tax without state authority. So, but the registries have passed muster. So it's, it sounds like a tax, but it's just. a
oh, I'm
registration
not
fee.
saying, I mean, there's
Oh,
fine
okay.
and fee, right?
No tax.
No tax.
Right, it's not a tax.
But, I'm not exactly sure of the state law, but generally speaking, I think like a fee can only be levied to, pay for the costs of the program that it is attached to. So maybe fine is what it really is.
I mean, it's basically a citation, yeah.
there would be a registration fee and then.
Well, there
Our
was,
planner has a comment.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say there's a couple other things that some of the other communities that have these types of things do. So like they require you to submit like a plan, so that it's not just, you're just doing it on your own, that you need to actually say, this is my plan within the next 6 months and what I plan to incorporate. The other thing that sometimes you can also use like a carrot and stick type of thing is that, when you're looking at someone like 113 on Main Street, like there's a requirement you actually have to upgrade and upkeep. Right, and so that it no longer looks like a derelict building, but it actually looks like something that, you might have to say you want some curtains, you want some,
That somebody
but
would
those
rent.
are right, and those are also get incorporated into those types of laws, so there's a number of different
Mhm.
elements, it's not just like only the fees, but there could be other things like that.
and I saw that at least one of the municipalities, if you file a plan, they waive the fees. So
Right.
that's basically says, I'm doing the right thing. So
So that's one.
that's one.
And you have uniform code violations currently available, so you can issue a violation if there's a lack of maintenance, if it needs painting, if things are falling down, if. Like that is already available and that.
I mean, some of those pictures suggest that we should be doing that.
Correct.
Which gets us to
Well,
the
that's-
next
this is-
step.
Well, this is the next part of it.
If someone is using it for warehousing and it's not zoned for warehousing, that is also a zoning code violation, so that can be
This
an
this is
issue.
the
and
next part
brought
of it,
This is-
yeah,
Either one.
yeah.
So
That's the thing, some of these businesses have been using, successful businesses in our downtown have been using some of the storefronts as like a warehouse for their
Yeah.
business. So what do you want us to do? How stringent do you want us to be on them? Do you want us to find them? Like, I don't want to affect a business that's been there for,
Yeah, totally, and like,
We
the
could let
obvious
them-
one is like readers, right? They have
There's 11, so
what's it?
there's 11
There's 11 okay.
at least.
And so.
The one that I
what's in the
patronize.
plan is, there is a plan that has a gradual reduction plan, because to Dan's point, like, it's not beneficial to our small business community to just go and, you know, immediately find them all when, like, they've been doing it for a long time and haven't had a problem. So like, this is trying to get back to being code compliant, and they put together.
even if some of these stores like that do have another one, even if they open up the storefront as maybe a takeout or something, then it meets our code and
Right.
it also benefits them for whatever they're storing in there.
You can issue a violation notice to provide an opportunity to cure the violation. So that's the point of issuing a violation notice and giving them a deadline. 9 times out of 10, they call and they say,
Yeah.
well, what can I do? And we can have creative ways to.
Yeah, so the two things so we talked about, and again, the details of this need to be ironed out, assuming everyone agrees that this is the direction we should go in. We want to get everything to compliance. We don't want to add a new compliant use to the downtown. So your options are, if you're not gonna, and part of our database discussion that evolved from Rick's initial discussion of the vacant registry is that eventually we want to have a full formal registry of all the businesses, all the commercial storefronts. Because A, then we can contact people in the case of like emergency or code violations, but B, we need to be tracking on everyone, not just like the ones that are not currently rented out.
Yeah, it'll turn into a building registration for all the commercial space.
Right, so in the interim, in order to both acknowledge that we have not been enforcing the code as it certainly exists for a variety of reasons. We want to give folks kind of a transition period, so you can give for some period of time to be determined. One suggestion was give it over to the public art committee. Give your window to the public art or your storefront to the public art committee, and the public art committee can implement, like, I mean, I actually just a couple weeks ago saw in London, there were like many different activations of vacant storefronts with like, they were for like historical use, for historical kind of mini museums or like art installations and things like that. I think the public art committee would probably be very excited to have, you know, a bunch of those to do, and that would help us give folks part of that transition period. So that immediately we could get the storefronts activated, even if they're not for like commercial use. And then have whatever this, you know, at a minimum, the front, you know, I think we said 15 feet
15
or
or
something
so.
from the front door. Or maybe we said even 10 feet, has to be whatever, has to be actively accessible to the public. And what you do behind there, just as what you do behind this back room for any commercial storefront, the village, you know, that's your choice. Or, you know, and the way we get it, or what I was gonna say with the database is, if the landlord is permitting a use of, I think this is how it works, if a landlord is permitting a use of a non-compliant use, that's on them, it's not just on the business owner. So we make it so that the landlord also understands that they cannot rent for a non-compliant use, and that should already be the case, just as we don't want landlords renting for, you know, illicit drug sales or any other non-compliant.
The property
use.
owner is liable.
Property.
Right.
In other words, if you were to issue a violation notice for any reason, it's the property owner,
That's
and
where
then
it
it's up
goes.
to the property owner to fix the circumstances with the tenant.
Is there you mentioned having it be ultimately every building joinery, could we make that a positive thing and think of it as like, you know, trying to start developing like a business directory for the downtown?
That's almost what it will be.
Yeah, we're doing that through the downtown committee. We're doing that now. Which is actually already in the works. But, you know, part of this was there are some buildings in the downtown where the facade just, you know, is solid. And in the code, there's suggested guidelines for opening up, for windows that have to have certain heights and spaces to look like a retail environment. And, it's just a guideline. So one of the things that I was thinking is to maybe have those guidelines become actual code, take away the guideline part of it and, to actually enforce what the building facade should look like. Obviously there's going to be a lot of variation in what, people view aesthetically, but, there were guidelines in the code now. And, it basically requires you to open up your storefronts. So. And the third one, so the code already exists for, so let me preface this by saying that I've been trying to get these storefront improvement grants, underway for months now. And I'm not getting a lot of participation. I mean, basically, if everybody followed through, we'd spend the whole thing. But I needed some help from the village because the code basically says now that if your storefront, your sign, your awning is derelict, it's a code violation. And I wanted to see if the village was willing to use the code violation, not as a punishment, but as an incentive for people to participate in the storefront improvement grants. So what I'm basically suggesting is that we issue that violation, which requires a cure in 10 days, but with the violation to also let them know that the village has this money available, that we could reimburse you up to 75% of the cost of it, with the goal being for those people who just, simply, aren't willing to bring their storefronts up to a positive appearance, to give them an incentive to do it. And if they don't want to participate, then they would still need to bring it up. They would still need to clean it up. But, here we are, we have all this money available. We don't want to return it to the county. And, I thought it would be a good carrot and stick to get more participation.
What is if you've got a, dingy store, a dingy.
Yeah, awning,
sign, like what is the,
Kept in good repair and painted and or cleaned as often.
but what is the penalty if there's a code violation? What is?
That would be up to the court. There's nothing in our code section under
It's not in the
that.
fee schedule somewhere?
$50 a day.
Oh, okay, so that's.
That's the
substantial.
general.
It's in the fee schedule.
Provision, no, it's
it's
a
not.
penalty, so it cannot be in the fee schedule.
Oh,
So it'd be any of the,
Yeah.
So
Go
then,
back
So
to
so
the
then there is an
general-
advantage to putting up 25% of the cost of a
Yeah.
new and better sign. It's
I
not like,
do not know why
That's
more
not a
people
scam.
are not participating in it. I mean, people,
Yeah.
they promise
Yeah,
to
it's never-
participate, they take the application, they call Sarah, they just don't go through with it.
But curing presumably, like we wouldn't, if they respond, I mean, 10 days, yes, you've been giving them a heads up, but no, this is
Right.
when they're issued a violation, but curing it for the purposes of this could presumably be like, got it, I want to apply for the grant, like what resources, like that's on the way to curing.
Right, so I had suggested in point 4 just to extend the 10-day compliance requirement if they, start the application process.
Minimum of 30 days. If it's not an emergency condition, the OCA, Office of Court Administration, requires to provide a minimum of 30 days. So when you issue the violation, it says, should you not comply by this date, we'll follow up with an appearance ticket, but that's the incentive, as I mentioned before, once a violation is issued, that's the incentive for them to reach out to try to make these arrangements. And you can't include on the face of the violation notice this incentive to obtain this money.
Because that looks
But
like
you
a
can
after we,
do it one by one after it's issued.
after they come in, we're allowed to give it to them in the building department.
But if
Absolutely.
it says 10 days in the code right now, does that need to be fixed?
The code does say 10 days.
For warning, for them to, right, after
That's
the
the
day.
sign code?
yes.
because broadly,
This
all of
is-
these are good ideas. I'm speaking for myself.
Mhm.
I think they're all.
That's the main goal right now, is to
And you-
raise any issues that you want them to further.
Two of these, 96 and 98, just received approval.
Right,
Right.
a couple of those are gonna be, they're just being
And,
rehabbed.
and 100 has just been rented and.
Just
and,
been, yes.
Right.
Yeah, there's one with a review board sign in the. window.
That's,
I
Patty's
think that's.
client, and after 2 meetings, everything, they chose materials and the architectural review board has approved both of those, so.
Thank you,
So
Patty.
you guys, let's say, anybody have any issues, or can they just come forward with the more resolved.
Yeah, this seems like it needs refinement and specificity.
Yes.
And I would follow the violations. I'd go meet with the folks and do the introduction to the improvement grants. So that it would, there wouldn't be a big lag time between, the issue of the
Now,
violation and
Are
letting
there
them
a lot
know.
of like storefronts or owners that are just sitting on multiple violations and not doing anything right now? And what's the penalty for that? Like if they just haven't
A
done,
vacant storefront,
yeah, I mean, that they're already racking up the violation.
No, the signs and awnings, code violations, I think he means.
then we could start.
You you generally should issue them under the New York State Uniform Code, because that has the teeth, the criminal, it's all prosecuted under the criminal procedure law, so.
But
That has
have
the
you,
teeth
this
in it.
point is, have you cited people for signage yet?
We haven't,
Yes.
So.
we haven't been doing that.
Your sign code,
He would just now be starting to issue.
your sign code is,
And there's other things
updated, it needs update.
in our sign code, yeah,
So,
but there's other
we need
things in
to
it
do that.
where,
No, we can do them at the same time, but, it's the First Amendment, it's like, there's been a whole slew of, US Supreme Court decisions that have come down to talk about sign codes, non-content based, due process, all of
Does
those
that have to
things.
do with him doing this now, or is that
So
something
we
we could do
can-
this summer?
no,
We just did a complete rewrite for Croton on Hudson, so, I mean, we have the research, Jeanette worked very closely with them, so we can take a look at that. At the same time, we're looking at, this registry concept, but I just wanted to get some feedback from you and consensus in terms of how to proceed. So I've asked Rick to send me the link to the model code, which would get us started, and then to talk about like option one or option two, we can draft it with brackets and you can talk about it further and.
But do we need to change the part of the code that says 10 days
Yes.
before Dan starts issuing violations?
It
Okay,
would have
so
to be
what
30
do we
days.
need to do to get that
but on
changed?
my violation, it says 30 days, I believe, so the violation's right, I can issue.
The violation notice would have to say, because it's not a life and safety, it's not, your firearm is out of date. It's not a life and safety issue. Generally, the court requires you to give 30 days to cure, and then during that period of time. Or you issue an appearance ticket. So
Can
during
we
that period
say
of
that,
time.
can the ticket say 30 days, even if the code says 10 and we fix the code in the background, so we don't have to wait 2 months for a public?
The violation section says 30 days now in our.
Okay.
In our code.
So yes.
So no, you can't.
No, we can't what?
No, you can't say 30 days. If does it say not less than 10 days?
Not exceed 10 days. The period for correction shall not
Not
exceed 10 days. From the date of notice of violation.
This is in your zoning code. Again, it's a criminal violation, so I can't imagine that
I could work with Lori Lee on
we
that.
have to work,
All right,
And just as an aside,
he's not gonna be citing people until we have to.
which
So then we should start that process.
we can,
Yep.
yes.
so we did issue a few letters. The code also allows, if there's a store that was no longer there, we could issue a notice to them, take down the sign. And we've issued a couple letters
Yeah.
along that line, and the code says if they don't take it down, then the village could take it
We're
down.
allowed to hire somebody and take it down at the
And then-
village's cost and then put it on their tax roll.
Right,
No.
all right.
All right,
Okay, we have to move on.
Three of these are already handled then, 196 and 98.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. We're getting there.
Yeah,
So
70 more to go.
move on with that, and we will look at changing the code, and you will put together a proposal for what
For
the
the vacant registry.
vacant registry would be that works, but I'm mostly concerned with the enforcement and what it is
Yeah.
that you think is gonna, be most effective, that you're willing to do. And then I'll come back. All right, now, number two, we're behind.
okay.
Thank you.
Look up to see if there's companion provision in the uniform codes too.
Thank you guys so much for
Thank you.
putting all that together.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
so,
Pat.
the second item discussion is about affordable housing unit management. So when we approve affordable housing units, they are supposed to be documented so that people can find them and know that they're available. And that is a system that someone needs to be in charge of. And we have been hoping that the county would be doing that for us. But they might be overwhelmed. I'm not sure. But
Yeah,
it-
so
it
let
hasn't
me-
been- Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a little bit more it's a little bit more complex than that, so when a new unit comes on, they have to
These are
enter
the
in,
inclusionary units,
yeah,
not
inclusionary, not,
separate buildings.
right, not 100% affordable housing building. So our inclusionary units, when a new unit comes on, they need to get a declaration of restricted covenants, which basically gets recorded against the property and specifically identifies the unit. In there is basic.
Patty? I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Well, I'm going to the side.
Thank you.
Based upon the requirements on the housing settlement. There is a marketing plan that Dobbs Ferry, all those units are supposed to undertake. And also, and there's very specific guidelines in which the income bands that can be, those units can be rented at and or sold at, and in terms of the pricing of those units as well. And so, for example, with the for sale units, they're a little bit easier because once they're sold, it's, you know, any sort of real estate transaction, you know, you'll have the declaration of restricted covenants. So there's this natural progression from one unit to another if they're sold. It's the rental units that become a lot more challenging because they have to get, they're almost a requirement to get recertified every year to make sure there's people still within that band, that income range, as well as that they're still being charged the appropriate rent. And so that's where things start becoming a little bit more complicated as to who's administering that, who's making sure that the tenants and the correct tenants are in those units, recertifying them. And then if somebody decides to move out, the new leasing, who again comes in for that. And so, you know, the village did pass a resolution specifically stating that, you know, that Westchester County was going to oversee that. We have now engaged with Westchester County because that wasn't taking place. And
We received their most updated materials.
right, and but it's
After much effort.
right, but we think, I think they have a lot on their plates and there seems to be a very long turnaround time. And there are, for example, we have some units that are technically within the village's program that we're not really getting like yearly reports on in terms of, you know, are they being leased up? Is there somebody there that's, you know, that meets those income criteria? So we wanted to talk to this board about potentially looking to, you know, maybe engage a third party to help with the administration of that, to have additional conversations with the county to see what, you know, what exactly they're willing to commit to, you know, versus what the village actually needs. So,
So in other words, if the county would be doing the initial lease up, doing the certifications, making sure that the particular unit has been marketed affirmatively and they have an affirmative housing marketing plan, if they would be willing to do that aspect of it, then it could be that a third-party administrator would do the recertifications or any vacancies or any, you know.
Do we know how many of these are that we know we can't do it internally with staff?
well, right now you have 15, 3 of which are being developed, but you have 12 others that are already there. And then you have additional ones that, you know, that we just approved another one. So you know, it keeps increasing.
Right. So,
Yeah, I mean,
this-
it's a good thing.
Yeah, this originally, the program originally stemmed from the back of the federal lawsuit, the affirmative fair marketing, affirmative fair housing lawsuit many, many years ago. I don't even know how many years ago. So the communities that did not have the requisite number of affordable housing units in development were required to follow guidelines and marketing documents. And those have always been attached to your covenants and restrictions because the county is actually named in your covenants and restrictions because they need to get credit as part of the federal housing settlement. that they're bringing along these affordable housing units. So we did, unfortunately, on the backs of the most recent applicant, we did finally get updated materials from them, which are specifically targeted to compliance with their affirmative fair housing marketing plan. And I'm holding this because this is Exhibit B and the attachment with the marketing plan that they now sent back.
So there's 12 units currently, there's 3 more in development, there's gonna be more potentially down the line, hopefully.
Does this include
What-
Danforth that you're talking about?
Yeah, so it's 10 at Danforth,
Yes.
1 at 185 Ashford, 1 at 34 Clinton, and then 3 at 41 Cedar.
Yeah.
And the Danforth
put
has.
all of that information together.
Yes,
The Danforth has an entity, a consultant that is doing the administration of their 10 units.
right.
The county's not involved with those.
Those are the rentals. You do have 4 for sale units.
Yeah.
Right, but as you said, like, those are lawyer closed,
Right.
they're part of the deed, it's not gonna pass a title search.
Right,
So-
exactly.
So, but for the rental units,
Yes, the
so
CNO,
there's 10
yeah.
at the Danforth, and those aren't part of the 12 that you talked about, or they are?
They are.
So then there's 2.
Right, so, right, but the thing is, at some point, you know, we don't know how long the Housing Action Council's agreement with Danforth is. And we also wanna make sure, I mean, we found out this year that they've been recertifying Danforth every year, and I don't think Dobbs Ferry was even getting notifications on that. So we
in-
wanna
yeah,
bring it,
in-
we wanna like
in
organize
addition
all.
to going through this process, there should be a conduit for reporting to the
Right.
local community and also a conduit for reporting for the county, so the county can still get the benefit of.
Is there some sort of legal requirement for what certification,
Yes,
like what, like,
Who
can,
can certify,
like,
right?
can the committee be part of this?
Yes, they can. I mean, so to some extent with recertifications, there is certain criteria you have to meet. But with the declaration of restrictive covenants, you're gonna want, I mean, we can have a template, but ultimately somebody needs to, like, you know, administer, make sure that when things are coming up for re-rental, I mean, recertifications or releases, that they're able to communicate. So it's a lot more than probably the Affordable Housing Task Force can
yes.
do on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
Unless, you know,
So the thing is then, it all needs to be done in accordance with that settlement from long ago. And it all needs to be done in accordance with the most recent data in terms of the rental and the criteria and the village's criteria. So, generally, the research, like if the county would agree to do the initial lease up with the covenant and restrictions that we've just received, then it could be that the unit owner could pay a fee to a consultant specifically targeting these kinds of certifications and recertifications.
But a consultant
that
would
would
hire,
be-
right, so that there's not any funny business.
right, right.
Well, we could go, the village could go to an RFP and get a proposal in, because we received the most recent fee schedule from the Housing Action Council, thanks to Tracy Barron and also Rob Lane, who were active in getting this information. But it would be to cover the fee, it could be that the part of the covenants and restrictions is that the unit owner would agree to this third-party administrator in addition to the
How much
county's
does the
doing.
third-party
So-
administrator cost, and does it scale with
I just
units?
want-
Oh, sorry.
Yes,
I just wanna like lay down why we're talking about it. The Affordable Housing Task Force and Rob and Tracy have been working with them on proposing what we could do moving forward. We just wanted to lay the groundwork here so everyone knows that this is even an issue and that they're working on it. But we don't really have to do anything more than just know that it's an issue and that in the future, we're gonna come and they're gonna propose with them what they think the best solution is, if something's gonna cost money or if the county's doing it. But we wanted you to know that this, well, while we have Valerie here anyway for number 3, we thought we'd at least discuss it.
yeah. So
We don't have to solve any.
Right, and I think the next steps in this process, we're really gonna focus on identifying exactly what tasks we would want in terms of administration, like what I say, the Village of Dobbs Ferry would want in terms of administration. And then setting up probably a meeting with Westchester County to say, can you provide this to us? You know, and then also potentially having a conversation with Housing Action Council to see what their service is, and then ultimately come back to this board with, we recommend either going out for an RFP, or maybe Westchester County is able to really be able to, you know, satisfy what's necessary. I think what we've been finding is that even the declaration of restricted covenants took about 3 months to develop.
Because of
And-
this new documentation, which now has a lot of language in terms of marketing consultants and oversight.
Right, and the
so
thing is, we don't know, the
press it
issue is that 34 Clinton was asking for many months to get this done. We were, you know, and we finally have them signed, but now we don't even know what the next step is gonna be, whether the county's gonna work with them on the marketing plan, or whether they're just gonna, you know, like, this is where we feel like there's gaps in the process still. And we really wanna kind of get that, so it's seamless, and that we're making sure that the i's are being dotted.
Yeah, it is grants.
Because they're-
Affordable housing units.
Right.
Stuff.
Because there are there is a list of county approved marketing consultants that the unit owner gets to choose from in order to get the initial lease up. So, you know, there's been work internally at the county, they've been slow to get to this point, but now we really need to follow up, and we'll get back to you with what we envision to be next
Right.
steps and best, you know, in the best interest of the
Right.
affordable.
Because the units that are, the building that's being developed in Cedar owes the village 3 units. So we want to get them in the pipeline as quick as possible, but we want to kind of get this sorted out first.
So, on to number 3.
Okay. So
We're gonna push forward to the next meeting because we will not have time. So, solid waste collection carting services
Oh,
will be pushed.
well, I can run through, I mean,
No, it's okay. I mean, that's gonna take too long, so it's fine.
Okay.
Ours is we've got 15 minutes. Let's do
Okay.
this.
so, the one thing I provided as part of your packets, you received, the assessment of park and recreation facilities and fees in lieu of parkland. This is something that Lori Lee has been talking about, for a couple of years. It's, you know, the village, of Dobbs Ferry issues, fees in lieu of parkland for its development, and for all site plans and subdivision applications. And there, when a community has fees on the books, especially with the park fee in lieu of parkland, the requirements based on village state law is that you need to have an evaluation of the present anticipated future needs of parks and recreational facilities in the village, based on projections of population growth. And you're supposed to have an overall analysis of the needs, the assessment, potential future population growth, and then sort of backtrack that or use that as a basis for developing your overall parks and recreation fees. So what we did was we just basically did an analysis of
And
that,
have we done this before?
Many, many years ago.
many, right?
So this is an update to
Right.
the previous.
It was an update from, you know, you increased the fees a number, like a few years ago. And this is the kind of the analysis to just kind of confirm or check that the fees that in which the village is assessing does indeed calculate out based upon not only the future needs of the community, but also in terms of how much it would cost to actually develop and buy new property within the village. So basically, the bottom line is that this report basically supports your fee schedule that you currently have. It's also in line with a lot of other fees within like neighboring municipalities. But I think the more important piece is that, you know, in table 8, we specifically have the current fees and then the cost it would be to continue the same amount of parkland per person that you already currently have in Dobbs Ferry for each new person that comes in. And you'll see that it actually costs like at least 2 to 3 times more to develop new parkland in per person in that same ratio than you are charging on your current fees. We are not recommending to increase those fees just because of the fact that like it can become very expensive for
Right.
a community, but we just wanted you to be aware that your fee schedule as set, you know, does fall within the, you know, criteria and you can continue to. Set.
Isn't this, I mean, comparison a little bit academic because
It
there's
is.
no place that we can spend
It is, but that is the
$14,158 to pay
requirement
another
of
person for
the,
parkland?
right,
Because the state statute says when you're looking at site plans and subdivisions, you can appropriately assess whether parkland can be located on that property that's undergoing the development. So that's the appropriate standard. And once you've determined there's nowhere we can put parkland on this property, which is usually the case, except with large subdivisions, but you don't have those here. Then you then go to assess a fee in lieu of putting the parkland. And then that goes into a special purpose fund and can be used for recreation purposes or to purchase property or to obtain open space or to, like, you can use it in a way that it enhances your current inventory and your current facilities. But you know, you can't call it, most people just affectionately call it a rec fee, but it isn't for rec usage. It's really that you can't locate the parkland on the property. So we just wanted to be sure that we've assessed and we have an accurate and updated inventory. And thanks to the work that's being undertaken by the comp plan committee and the comp plan and all the input, we had the data available and it was important for us to get this into the public record.
Just out of curiosity, is money, what's in that fund? That special purpose fund where the payment in lieu of parkland goes?
What is or how much?
Yeah, how much money is in there, and do we spend it ever?
Yes.
Yes, you do. You recently
The
approved
splash pad, right?
200, yeah.
Oh, that's from the splash pad, okay,
Yeah.
it's used for, okay.
Yes.
yeah. So, and yeah, so I agree with you, trustee Rosenberger, that
Just 100.
the calculations, or it's an academic exercise, but that's what's required by state law. If, and, you know, if it was about recreation needs, I mean, we also put a lot of arguments in there about the new recreation needs itself, but technically the economic calculation is based on new parkland.
Parkland, the location of parkland, yeah. So you often use it as matches for your CDBG projects. You often use it as matches for other purposes. So it's very often being apportioned for use for recreation facilities. Yes.
So that's it. So it's just, you have it now, it'll be part of like your record, and then if anybody ever challenges or questions it, we have the information.
It's good.
Does the planning board have any discretion over assessing these fees?
They technically do have to make a findings, and they make the findings in their resolution that there is no parkland on site and that parkland is required.
So no, there's really no discretion once you have the fee set.
But the fee itself is set. Now, that's something that can, you know, the board can have that discussion and you can always make modifications, but based on your current fee schedule, you are appropriate.
Okay, Lori, I'd like to then, because that my understanding based on our conversations about this fee relative to ADUs was that the
Yeah.
planning board did have discretion, and if they don't really have discretion, we have to.
Right, so that's gonna
That
be,
was the sliding scale I had proposed, which
Right.
got shot down, but Rob Lane did indicate he had a better understanding at this point of the process. And again, it requires this analysis. Can and again, it's fortunately, some of your ADUs are not site plan related. It's really the separate buildings that are site plan. If you're developing it within your property, it's
And there's no assessment at all.
no,
Right.
it's a special permit, yes.
so, but that's something that, yes, that can be looked at, and that's something that I think
Right,
has been flagged to. be
Right.
looked at.
because if you say to a regular developer of a studio apartment, you have to pay 6,000. And then you say to a developer of an ADU unit, which is 1 bedroom, you don't have to pay a rec fee. You really need to have the justification for that, so.
No, understood. I just wanted, it just sounded like what my understanding of the solution was, isn't the solution, so I.
Right, well, and this is also just to keep in mind, this was an analysis of based what you actually have on the books right now. You can create the sliding scale and other options that would allow for some of those solutions.
Yes, and I thought it was extremely creative way for the planning board and the village board, whoever has jurisdiction, to look at the in lieu of parkland fee vis-a-vis the ADUs, but I think there was a misunderstanding and that sort of turned into a let's table this.
Maybe we should untable it and talk about it,
There you go.
separately. Thank you.
Right, and I think the last thing I wanted to just update everybody is on the comprehensive plan. I sent an email out on Friday, just kind of with internal links to the current draft of the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan committee is reviewing the draft as we speak. We've had 2 public workshops. Once the committee gives, like, basically provides any comments, we make any, like, next round of edits, we will be sending this board the draft plan for your review. Once you find it acceptable to go out for public review, it will be posted on the comprehensive plan website, and then we will be having another, I'm gonna say public, we're gonna work out whether it's a public meeting or hearing, but it would be on the draft plan, and my thought is probably sometime in June, have a presentation, and then invite people for any questions or answers and any other feedback, make amendments again to the draft plan, and then come have a public hearing on the final comprehensive plan, and then hopefully go for adoption and then start the implementation of the zoning updates. So, I just wanted to give everybody an
If
update.
there are any,
Right, the zoning.
yeah, just, making sure that we're not speaking on behalf of the legislative board, so
Yes,
just
yes,
making it clear.
right. So, yes, we'll be working, you have 2 board members
Yeah.
that are representing the board as liaisons as part of the committee. So I think that they're aware that we're anticipating zoning changes to take place as part of the implementation strategies.
Will be considered.
Yes.
They will be.
So I just wanted to, so if I don't know if anybody, if you haven't been able to open up those documents, let me know. But we are moving forward and we should have a draft plan for this board to review within like a month or so.
And we'll circulate some options in terms of timing for sort of a public forum.
Yeah.
So you can be present when the public gets the presentation and makes any comments initially. So we'll just do that sort of as a public forum format, I'm anticipating.
Yes.
And then the public hearing will come once you have a proposed final.
Right, and I would encourage you maybe to look at the document now, because I don't anticipate too many major modifications, because the comprehensive plan committee already reviewed all the goals and recommendations, reviewed all the maps that went in there, so really it was just kind of putting the document together. So I think overall, it would take, if you have a chance, take a look at some of the maps in there. I think that really kind of gives an overall vision, and then some of the goals and recommendations. Yeah. Right. Thank you.
All right, with the last 8 minutes, can we do executive session for something that I'm gonna pull up on my email? Hold on.
But then, you have 8 minutes.
I know.
Oh,
I think that's enough for the first part. No? If not, then we'll come back out and then go back in. Otherwise, what are we doing with these 8 minutes?
liaison reports.
Oh, good. All right. Liaison reports, we'll do that, huh?
Might be
And we'll-
neater and
Yeah,
cleaner.
and then we'll go to
Sorry.
exec after we start this regular meetings.
Yeah, you can call to order and then.
Okay. Go, Donna, give us your big liaison reports.
Okay,
Tell us.
I went for a walkthrough on Monday with Kendra and Abby at the senior center, they have a leaking roof, they have tiles that are coming up.
Okay.
So Kendra's in the middle of getting estimates and stuff, she has one already, and she needs a total of 3. They will be closed Cause there's no exercise classes in some of the summer weeks, so we thought we'd aim for that. While they're closed to, that's a hazard, yeah.
And the contract isn't closed, so.
No, the senior center is gonna be closed like for a week.
What I'm saying is the overall public works contract is not closed. We still have claims that we're trying to settle, and we also still have retainage. And we're going against the surety for the general contractor.
What does that mean?
That means that you can develop a list of what needs to be done, but it might be that it is the responsibility of the surety with the retainage money that remains in the account. I'm not sure exactly what the list is, but, Rob and,
Things like a leak and pull the tile.
And the gutter that fell off the side of the building.
oh, that
2 weeks
would not
ago.
be covered under your warranty, but the roof leak might be a warranty, so there's some stuff that's outside the scope of the contract, and we have a punch list that's still outstanding, and some things that, she can certainly get estimates on to do.
Good.
So
Now-
if there's things, should we have? What's the best way to try and get the things done that need to be done, even if there's something that needs to be done by the contractor that owes us that work, but isn't doing it in a timely fashion?
I just need the list to see if it's on the existing
Okay.
punch list.
So we'll get Kendra.
So Rob
to give
can,
you
yeah,
that list.
Yes.
so Rob can look at it and determine whether it's already on the punch list
But
or
if
whether
Rob's
we need.
out for another week and a half, that's. What we want to make sure that Kendra just.
Do you
gets.
have the existing punch list or who has it besides Rob? Or do you remember it?
We have it in the file. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Well, Lori, we actually, it's not a roof leak because it ended up being a window ceiling problem.
Okay.
So
So
that
just
was,
if you could
yeah,
get the list to
okay,
me,
okay.
copy Rob and Margaret, we'll see
Yeah.
if we can, compare it against that punch list.
Okay.
Why we have the reasons
That, I'm sorry. They also are having lunch and going to Pippin at the high school on Thursday. And Master
Magic
University is coming on Friday to do health screening at the senior center. They do so many things. I also met with Friends of the Waterfront, 9/11, they're working on the 9/11 memorial and getting that all done. And the Dirt Fest is 4/25 from 1 to 4. And they're also selling native pollinator and perennials for like $20 each, so ready to go in your garden. The beautification committee did the cleanup on Saturday. Ruby said there were 31 people that showed up, which was nice. And she thinks she has 2 volunteers for the committee. And they returned 3 Stop and Shop shopping carts that were all over town. And thanks to DPW for, working with the beautification committee on getting a lot of these things done. We had a great meeting a couple of weeks ago on the plantings that are gonna be done downtown and working as a partnership. So that's all for now. I have library tomorrow night.
Trustee Gupta.
All right, so traffic committee. Matt, can I defer the project mover?
Yeah, I'll
to
talk
you?
about that right
But they're very excited about our traffic. Traffic, speed hump and workshop that we're gonna have in a couple of weeks.
Just the little things in life.
Speed up.
You know. And then traffic easy, that's it. Youth Services Council. Working on the updating the mission statement and code, but the reality is we need more members.
But my hope is that we define the code,
Okay,
which then defines
Yeah.
the numbers. that
because
we
right now
need.
there's more liaisons than there
I
are,
know,
there's only 2 members.
but it's up to us to
Yeah.
change the code, so we don't need
Yeah.
members to change the
Okay.
code. So we have all the code that's in there for the Youth Services Council that, defines what it's supposed to do, which is up for us to change and decide if we want to change or not. And so I've asked the existing members to look at that code, and I've put some edits just to try and tighten it up because it hasn't been edited in a number of years, and there's not a grant that used to be in existence that was somewhat related to it. And there's been more things that we're trying to do with the youth that we want to try and get all in the same, work stream.
Great, send it over.
So, once we have that, we will send it over to
Yeah.
you and then we can consider it here. But part of what they do is define who should be like 9 adults and 3 kids or whatever, like it's
Yeah.
in the code is what we're supposed to do. And so if that's not what we think it should be any longer, then that's up to us to consider.
And does it need to remain a council in the code as opposed to like an ad hoc committee, for example? Like, is there a reason it should?
I would imagine it's up to us if we wanted to remove it from the code altogether.
I think it was in the code because it was required to be in the code for the grant.
Right, but if
And I don't know if
post
if
grant,
there's
if it makes more
an
sense. for it
option to
be a-
get more grant money and we'd have to put it back in the code. I don't know.
We could
And
just,
there,
if
yeah.
we struck it from the code, then we could
It's
have an easier
worth
process.
discussing. But it's also like. I mean, I don't quite understand still what happened with Human Rights Diverse Committee and the vote that was like, we vote for it to be permanent, but then it's not actually in the code. As
But
it's
none of the committees.
not defined in the
Yeah,
code.
because that's a different set of circumstances, because that's a commission. If we were to put it in the code, would be a commission, and we don't have a commission here, we have a committee, so we can add it to the code if you want to, but, as we had discussed during the period of time, that there's very specific obligations and bonding and hearing capabilities that would go along with a commission, and it wasn't really the intent to create a human rights commission because the county really handles that level of oversight.
But if the Youth Services Council, I mean, if the intent is that we have it in the code so that it continues to exist beyond our time, like that's what the idea was when we voted on the Human Rights Committee, was so that it would not be a temporary thing, it would be something that's required.
But I think,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off track, but like, yeah.
I mean, like
it's-
all the committees that we feel are important, I mean, maybe if human rights diversity committee rises above, then great, but I think. Yeah, at the moment, in terms of its current use and purpose, which is vague and unknown still, seems like good time to kind of regroup, and no reason that it should remain necessarily at a different like level of officialness than like all the other wonderful committees that we have that are volunteer driven and, do important work for the village without being like official code.
So that would be a mayoral appointment.
All right, we'll discuss that later.
Tree is status quo.
Okay. Anybody else have any updates? We have to move anyway. Yeah,
Just super quick, the two things in the radar for the Parks mission are, Lori Lee, the, dedication draft is in your inbox for review. We need to tighten up the, language around the dedication policy that the Parks Commission wants to move forward on for, benches and trees in the parks, and to formalize that process a little bit more. But Lori is gonna help us get it into compliance with municipal law. And then, should be hearing hopefully by tomorrow from the engineer about, timeline for finishing the splash pad. So Kendra is on it.
I was just gonna say, because we have our downtown committee chair here, and Patty is also on our committee. We're working on a website for the downtown, and because we were also working on an LDC website, we thought some of those elements could be shared, and it might make sense, even though one is really more resources for residents, one is really more resources for businesses, but there's a way to kind of make it more cohesive and have one website. I think there might be some questions around like funding and like merch and things like that that we can discuss explicitly at some point, but we have some momentum on that. Not to open up a can of worms, we can discuss that
it
later.
would be through the LDC. if
Through the
there's any-
LDC, yeah.
What would be through the LDC?
So like paying for the website, or like if we wanted to have people were able to donate and get, like we could sell Dobbs Ferry t-shirts or merchandise or things like that.
All right. Is there a motion to close this and move on? Deputy Mayor Galen, Trustee Asuma,